began talks of doing this, and we do it for quite a few rural electric associations. We do it for county workers throughout the state of Minnesota, and just love being able to share safety with you guys. It's not maybe a fun topic, but I think we're going to try to keep this as interesting as we can here and keep things moving. So again, I'm Jake Carr. I'm a certified arborist. I'm currently the CEO of Carr's Tree Service, and we employ about 250 people throughout the state of Minnesota. We've been in business for 48 years, and we're owned by 10 rural electric associations. The coolest part about our company, though, is we're not just utility line clearance people. We do love doing private residential work throughout the state. We love doing county work throughout the state, and having relationships and developing business practices throughout with each of these groups is enjoyable. So we have 4 locations. I kind of broke it up into multiple areas here just so everyone could know and understand. Not everyone knows where Cortland or Byron are necessarily, so we use Mankato and Rochester. We have an office in Freeport, actually, which is our St. Cloud office, Anoka, Otter Tail's the head office, and then Alexandria as well. So again, if you guys ever have questions about our business or what we do, or if we could be of assistance to you, feel free to let us know. I grew up in Otter Tail, Minnesota, spent most of my life here. Moved about 300 yards 3 times, so 100 yards each time. My parents kept building next door to one another, but went and coached and taught down in the Twin Cities. I was at Bethel University and Crown College down in Arden Hills and St. Bonifacius. So spent 12 years down in the cities, and it was time to come back home, and I never thought I'd be here doing this, but my degrees actually lined up well with it. During my undergrad and grad school programs, I worked summers here at Carr's Tree Service, got my bachelor's in life science education and my master's in organizational leadership, and here I am today. I came back to a family business I never thought I'd be a part of, but enjoying it, and things are going well. Goals and objectives of this class, you guys: respect chainsaws. You know, the way I relate it to our people all the time is it's no different than when you first learn about a lawnmower. You know, what does the person teaching you about your lawnmower tell you? You know, first thing is don't ever reach underneath the cage, you know, with the mower on. Make sure you shut it off, shut the blade off, use a stick. You know, think that way. Think like a lawnmower. Power tools are dangerous. Was working with a physician here the other day, and he said every week I see somebody who has a power tool or ladder or some sort of instance from home that doesn't go well. And chainsaws are no different. They're violent machines, and we'll talk more about that going forward. But here's what I'd like you guys to all think about. Know the risk, know the precaution, take the precaution. It's a simple means that will keep you out of problems 9 times out of 10. There's always that instance where something doesn't go as planned, but if you can identify the risk and identify the precaution and take the precaution, likely you're going to, you know, things will turn out for the better. It's no different than when you hop in your vehicle to come to work in the morning. There's a risk associated with that. There's precautions associated with that. You know, don't be sleepy, don't be tired, wear your seatbelt, all of those things. And then, are you willing to do that? Are you willing to take the precaution? See something, say something. We always talk about you're coaching it or allowing it. And I truly believe, guys, that it's what we say is almost as important as what we don't. Is more important than what we don't say. So see something, say something. If you see a coworker not doing something right, hey, could I trouble you and just let you know that I'm watching out for your safety today? Here's one thing I think you might want to consider. And some of these things we're going to talk about today are going to give you, you know, hopefully that ability to stand up and say something if you see something that's not being done right. Because I can only imagine in our job, if I don't say something and someone gets hurt, I'm going to feel sick about that. So it's an encouragement to you guys to see something and say something. And people use chainsaws. Some people are going to use them daily. Some people are going to use them weekly. Some people are going to use them monthly. And the more you use them, the more prone to issues you are. Some of our accidents here at our company have come from people who have been here for a long time. I would say it's about 50-50. You know, The new guys are the ones you think would, but they've got a respect and a caution about doing a lot of these things that others don't. So just remember, it could be you. Just because you use a chainsaw every day doesn't make you immune to this. These are great reminders and teaching points. And then another one to step off of that would be step. Safety takes every person, and we're all accountable in this. And I would hope that you guys all want your team and your teammates to be safe when you guys are out there working. So we want to learn and discuss how to safely use a chainsaw, how to operate a chainsaw, and maintain a chainsaw. And to be honest with you guys, that starts with job site inspection. It starts with emergency planning and preparedness. So, before you even start that chainsaw, we need to know what we're up against. It's being aware of the situation, knowing the risk, knowing the precaution, and taking the precaution. A few questions here. Claire's going to help me with this, but how many here have ever used a chainsaw? Please take the time to answer this as best you can amongst your group. How often do you use a chainsaw? Daily, weekly, monthly, annually? Have you ever been cut by a chainsaw? And have you ever been cut by a power tool or lawnmower? Numbers are coming in here. We'll give you a couple seconds to take care of this. So this is good. It's coming in. I'm enjoying seeing this. This helps me identify who I'm speaking with here. Looks like 98% of us have used a chainsaw. How often? Looks like the bulk of people here are using one on a monthly basis, but they're 20%, 1 out of 5 of us here are using one weekly. Roughly 20-25% are using one annually, but half of us are using one monthly. And again, that's a great reminder that when you pull out a chainsaw once a month, likely not a professional unless you're using it at home. And even then, have you been taught the right way? Those are some of the questions we want to answer here today. And have you ever been cut by a power tool, lawnmower, or other particular, 94% of us fortunately have not been cut by a chainsaw, but 6% of us have. Have we ever been cut by a power tool? It looks like a third of us have. So I'm going to share a couple pictures and examples here. They're graphic photos, you guys. So polls have been closed here, so you guys can take a look at those numbers, I believe. And I shared them with you. But graphic photo to follow. So just a little pre-story behind this. This was one of our coworkers here. His dad, who was a physical education teacher for 30 plus years, great guy, retired, loved doing some woodworking on the side and home construction type stuff. Was going to make some posted signs for hunting purposes, and in terms of cutting the plywood, he had an issue. And right before this, him and his son were out, and I believe they were hunting actually, and he said, "So Dad, what's safety to you?" He was trying to pick his brain from an educational standpoint, and he said, here's what we talk about at work. It's know the risk, know the precaution, take the precaution. And this guy, who's a well-trusted, well-respected individual, went in and thought he could just quick whip out some signs. And let's see here. Here's what happened to him. He loves playing the guitar, and fortunately for him, this table saw sniped his fingers here as he cut through the plywood, and he did not lose his fingers. They were able to stitch and sew them back together. He's now resuming playing guitar here 2 years later. But it did set him back in life. And this is the thing we want to all keep from happening, okay? We don't want this to be us. And whether that's doing construction at home or using a chainsaw at work, that's why we're meeting here today. We don't want this to happen to you guys. And it can happen to people who have used a table saw for years. This guy had. He's done construction projects his whole life. But it's a great reminder that no matter your experience level or what you're doing, things can take a turn for the worse. And I just want you to be cognizant of that. So I'm going to play a little YouTube video for you guys here. and something our guys put together. And again, they're not actors, but they worked hard at this. This was our safety committee that put this together. And whoops, let's see here. Hopefully you guys can hear this coming through. So.
Is there supposed to be sound right now? Because I don't hear sound.
No, I don't think so. Let's give it a couple seconds here.
Dan, I can't even do it. My mind isn't there today.
What's wrong, man? What's going on?
We're 2 days away from deer opener. My mind is not right. I can't even think about this right now. All I'm thinking about is getting up north and into the deer stand.
Hey, buddy. Calm down right now. Keep your head in the game. We got to finish this job first.
I'll see what I can do.
So do we need to trim this one?
Yeah. We can get that limb right there. That's peeking out. One behind it. The two at the bottom. And I think it'd be perfect for a tree stand.
Oh, Troy. Troy, you all right? Everything okay?
Deer tracks, man.
Troy, right now we got to keep our minds on the task at hand. To stay safe, we got to focus on the job. Need you to take 5 minutes. Have one of these. And we'll get back to work.
Hey, man. Thanks. Hey, guys. I hope that video wasn't too painful to watch. Just remember, we are not actors. I hope the message we were trying to get across to you came through. Basically, we just want to talk about negative energy in the workplace and how it can affect our day and how it can affect safety. If you see a guy having a bad day, help him out, talk to him, see what's going on, see if we can change that negative energy into a positive. The whole idea behind the Snickers bar is a little positive reinforcement. A little thing such as a candy bar can actually go a long way and maybe help a guy out through the day. So I hope the message we were trying to get across to you came through. I hope you guys liked it. And just remember, when you're out there working together, work as a team and be safe. Thanks, guys.
Oh, look at that. Is that deer? Yeah, right there.
Where?
Right there. Oh.
Okay, so a little humor there. Hopefully you guys didn't find that too dry and boring, but keeping your head in the
Meet your
game.
next pillow. Why do we make our pillow in the shape of a cube?
Let's see.
I'll tell you. The problem with pillows is that you're trying to fit a...
We're back. Everyone can hear me, Claire? We're good?
Yep.
Okay, so again, hopefully you guys found that a little entertaining, but make sure our heads are in the game. I think that's the first thing. What we talk to about with our guys every day, when you wake up, everyone says safety's number one, safety's number one. If you guys have ever seen Mike Rowe or his videos, he always says safety third, more as an educational tool, but I truly believe it is safety third. Communication and attitude are huge. When you wake up in the morning, nobody says, I want to go to work and get hurt. When you wake up in the morning, you want to communicate. When you wake up, a lot of times we'll say, I don't want to talk to anyone. I don't want to see anyone. If that's our attitude, we're not going to get very far. Attitude and communication are two things that you bring to work with you. And when you get to work, what's your attitude like? What's your communication like? Are you going to stop someone from making a mistake? Or are you going to say, let's see how this plays out? Are you going to say something? Are you not going to say something? Those are all keys to what you bring to work. And again, I would say safety is third, because what our attitude and our communication level is that day is going to go a long ways. Again, this guy here, he was distracted, didn't have his mind in the right place, and that can lead to issues. preparing your trees for storm season. So this is an example of what we deal with on a daily basis. But if you look at this picture here, typically when I'm in person asking the class, I'll say, hey, point out some things that are of issue here. We've got a job site. We need to take branches down. We need to take trees out. How is this going to play out? What are some of the issues at hand? One is weather. 2 would be the power lines. 3 would be, why is that garage door open? 4 would be, have we talked to the homeowner? Have we knocked on the door? Have we coned off our drop zone? Have we marked out where we're going to be working? We get people all the time. We're working on city streets or out on the lake or whatever it might be, and they'll set up lawn chairs and start watching. And kids will ride by on bikes through sidewalks, right through cones, right through ribboned areas, and they don't care. They've never been taught what that looks like and how to understand it. So we even have a guy on the ground who has to watch some of these things sometimes. I don't know all your backgrounds, but I know that some of you guys are county workers, and I know some people take heat because, hey, we get calls like this from time to time too. You got guys sitting around. You got one guy on the ground who's just watching. Well, yeah, we want to make sure nothing happens or nobody enters that zone. There's a reason, and sometimes it's even just watching our relation to the power line in terms of where the boom is in proximity. Again, here's another situation of things we're up against on a daily basis. Power lines going right through the middle of trees, on city streets, homeowners, backyards, things of that nature. How do we prep the scene? How do we prep the scenario for something like this? We have a pre-job briefing. You guys do as well, I'm sure, in the mornings. We use cones, reflective cones. We put signs out, utility construction ahead, utility work ahead, tree work ahead. We'll use ribbon in town if we can, or cones to zone off a drop zone area. And you guys, I'm sure many of you have done it. I'm not going to go to this extent today, but we could pop up YouTube videos and watch and laugh for probably hours at what crazy things we've seen people do. That picture on the bottom right, that's a YouTube video. We just took a screenshot of it. Anytime a guy climbs a ladder with a chainsaw, typically something bad's going to happen. I think in this case, fortunately, no one got hurt, but it was quite entertaining and not something I would recommend you guys doing. But feel free to YouTube. There's crazy, funny videos you can watch on people doing not smart things with chainsaws. So again, here's back to the zone. Let's identify a drop zone. Number one incident in cutting trees is a struck by. So a struck by could be anything from a person on the ground getting hit by a tree falling. It could be someone on the ground getting hit by a tree being cut from up above. It could be a dead branch falling out of a tree they're working on. A struck by, could be a car hitting you in the work zone. Those are all struck by incidents where here you can see the cones, the flags are out. People are trying to work on the safe side of the street. But again, if a guy's working up above you, is it cleared out down below? How close are we working together with one another out on a job site on a county highway? Are you spaced out? Are you spread out? Too many people within a zone can be a bad thing. So keep that in mind as well. Again, here's identifying a drop zone, any area where a tree branch or something could occur. Should this area be coned off? You bet. It should be talked about in the job briefing. It should be identified. Wind can play a factor in this. Something can blow over. We're going to talk about distance one should remain away from a bucket truck and or a tree that is being felled coming up here. So before I get too far ahead of myself, operational procedure. What does a drop zone look like for felling purposes? How far back should one be from the tree being dropped? How far back should one be from the tree if they are a part of the operation? So here's a tree. That's the height of the tree. Say the tree is 50 feet tall. Safety distance, 2 times the height of the tree, 100 feet. Okay. If the tree is 50 feet tall, we want to be 100 feet away from that tree. If you're part of the operation, you could technically be at 75 feet or 1.5 times the length of the tree. I think in a roping situation, if you're pulling a 50-foot tree over, you want to make sure that rope is well over 75 feet long. Probably should be 100 feet long if you're pulling something over. There's plenty of YouTube videos on that as well where people get hit pulling trees on top of themselves. Make sure all bystanders, though, are 2 times the distance of the tree back in any felling circumstance. Those part of the operation are required to be 1.5 times the distance of the tree. Okay, we talked about using a rope that's long enough. And those that are not part of the operation are 2 times the distance of the tree, and the further back, the better. Again, debris can fly. We've seen stuff fly, 100 feet and land in people's yards. People have been hit by twigs or branches even. That's a lot of weight coming down with impact, and things can fly. So keep that in mind as you are felling trees. Don't work alone. Emergency preparedness here. Don't work alone. One of the most dangerous things, one of the most fatal things you see in the tree industry, people on the weekend cutting alone. People have bled out. People have dropped trees on themselves. And then on top of that, does your coworker know where the nearest hospital is? One of our crews, or I shouldn't say one, but many of our crews, one of our guys got this started. He writes down the address, leaves it in the pickup truck in case anything does happen. You're out there. The crew lead might know where they're going, but once the crew gets there and they do the job briefing, do they really identify the address, and do people know in a panic situation where they can find it? You guys know as well as I do that something happens and people forget, people lose their minds, people go to a different spot and panic, and they can't remember where things are. Try to make it uniform. Try to make it as responsible or as easy to find as possible, and think of response time in the whole process when you're doing your job briefing. Make it a place where people can find it and make a 911 call and share where you're located. Does your coworker know how to call for help? Hopefully they know how to dial 911. Are they willing to say, hey, it's a high aerial rescue if you are in a bucket truck? Because if a crew comes out and doesn't have the right equipment to save you, it's not going to matter anyways. Does your coworker know your location? Oftentimes we'll have guys stick a cone out on a driveway before they go in, just so that you have a marker. Hey, we are on County Highway 15, and there's a cone at the end of the driveway. We're 4 miles from, even that can get you there. GPSs on phones also help, but you'd be surprised how many people go into shock and can't explain emergency preparedness. It's something I'd encourage you guys to all do when you're out in the field working. Before we cut, what are some safety measures we need to have in place? Okay. Here you go. So here's a image of a guy who's got everything going on. He's got a hard hat on, protective glasses. Glasses work. A shield works. Gloves. Let's try and wear Kevlar gloves that can stop a cut or at least reduce a cut from 60 stitches to 6 stitches. We're going to talk about the power of a chainsaw coming up here. But leather boots, steel toe or composite toe would be a nice piece, but leather is binding in some regards for a chainsaw. Sleeves, we wear sleeves here. Since I'm on screen, I don't know if you guys can see me or not, but sleeves, we pull them up over our wrists. They go up to about here. They're cut resistant. They're not going to stop a cut, but they will, again, hopefully keep you from having 50 stitches and turn it into 5. So wearing your PPE, something we provide all our coworkers or all our workers with, employees with, and not something you want to take for granted. Quick little video now. Again, we'll pop this one up. So no shortcuts. Again, let's see here. No shortcuts. These are some of the challenges you're going to see out in the field. And again, they're temptations as much as anything, but be cognizant of it. I know it's easy to do.
All right. Last spot. got just a couple little ones to take out. I'm gonna finish my paperwork, turn in hours. You want to just run out there and get those ones?
All right, man. I guess we have to hurry up and get this done so we can get out of here for the day.
As soon as it's done, we're done, man. Dan!
Yeah.
Come on, man. Gotta get chaps on.
Come on. End of the day.
I know, but we gotta have chat. Where's your vest?
Whatever.
Dan. Man, I'm not trying to be mean about it, but you gotta wear a PPE. No matter if it's 1 cut or 2 or 10. You just gotta have a PPE on. Know you're having a bad day, and it's not much. But have a Snickers. I hope it helps brighten your day a little bit.
So there you have it, guys.
Outside, but hate the plastic feel so-called performance shirts, where cotton makes you damp and uncomfortable. As a fishing guide in Montana, I felt the same way. I tried every brand and couldn't find a shirt that kept me comfortable and dry. That's why I quit the guide life and started a new kind of apparel. So
Sorry about that. So thanks for that, guys. I apologize. This is my first time through one of these, and I know you get the ads after the YouTube videos there, but hopefully that was beneficial to you. Attitude and communication. Again, before safety even takes place, we have a choice to make, and those guys demonstrated what choices are out there. There's shortcuts that can be taken all the time. Oh, it's just 1 cut. It's just 2 cuts. I don't need to wear my I don't need to wear my PPE. In the video, the guy was willing to say something. Hey, I'm watching out for your safety. And just something I'd encourage you guys to do. You probably see it on a daily basis. You know, oh, we don't need to throw a cone or a sign out for that. Yeah, let's throw it out. 1 accident, 1 issue, and you're going to be regretting the fact that you didn't do things the right way. So PPE live examples. Let's see here. I'm going to. You guys see me okay here? I'm gonna kind of skip this portion, I think. So basically, you got hard hat, gloves, glasses. The one thing I wanted to show you guys were sleeves. No, wear hearing protection. You know, muffs, plugs. Muffs are the best protection you guys can wear from a hearing standpoint. Plugs are good too. They make bands now. Things have gotten a lot easier. Chaps, if you guys ever need chaps or anything like that, you know, feel free to give us a call. We'll work with you guys as counties and get you a discount on them. But we are a steel dealer. We can get chaps. High vis, reflective. Again, here's chaps, just so you guys know what we're talking about. They're pants, Kevlar pants, cut resistant pants. What can happen to chaps? Here's what happens when a chainsaw gets a hold of them. Okay, the Kevlar ripped out, guy's leg was fine. Anytime you get a cut in a pair of chap pants, and you see Kevlar starting to appear, they're no good. You know, you're going to have to turn them in and get new pants. Once that Kevlar is exposed, it becomes a hazard because it can snag on branches. If you're shoving stuff into a chipper, it can snag on a chainsaw and actually draw the saw into your pants. And that's not something we're going for either. But those are a couple examples I did want to show you here. I'm not going to go too far into detail. Fueling of a chainsaw. This is something that sounds so simple, but you know, chainsaws are expensive. I mean, right now too, with trying to get stuff and order parts and things of that nature, taking care of your stuff is a big deal. Otherwise, it could be down for a while. Fuel the chainsaw outdoors in a well-ventilated area. If you're only using a chainsaw once a month, make sure you've got good gas. I mean, I've seen where people don't use the gas for a year. They put it in the chainsaw and it has issues. Properly mixed gas, typically it's a 50-to-1 ratio. And again, that's 50-to-1 with gas to oil. Try to find an area away from vegetation. You know, we get this all the time. Hey, you spilled gas. I shouldn't say we get it all the time, but we're constantly teaching this, that you do it not on a concrete driveway. People get upset. You don't want to do it in someone's yard. You know, you don't want to have a chainsaw that leaks and drips gas and in an area that's mowed and people are going to be calling and complaining. Just watch out for you guys in the future that you don't get yourself in those situations, because it's not fun having to go back and fix stuff all the time. And again, never smoke when fueling a chainsaw. These are all items that may have been covered with you before, but just good reminders. Clean the area around the bar or the oil reservoir with a rag or a small brush. You know, don't let that sawdust feed into the oil vessel. Don't let it feed into the gas chamber there. So it's something you got to take care of with a rag or a small brush on a continual basis, but keep your saws clean. Fill the oil reservoir each time the saw needs to be refueled. If you don't have to do that, something's not quite right with your saw. They are built to coincide with one another in terms of when each tank runs empty. Some saws don't use as much oil, and that's okay, but you should fill them both at the same time. And keep that bar clean. You know, clean that bar out with the bar cleaner, and keep that sawdust from getting in there too. Keeping it well oiled does wonders for the livelihood of that chainsaw. You know, chainsaws, we run them on a daily basis here, Monday through Friday, and they typically should be lasting 8 to 10 years. And a saw that costs $500 to $1,000, that's a great life expectancy and a great return on investment if you can keep it lasting that long. If you're not using it every day, I would wager to guess these chainsaws can last 15 to 20 years. So just make sure you're taking care of it. Typically, again, we talked about the oil reservoir being the same as the fuel. And if not, the chainsaw might not be oiling properly and could cause damage to the bar. Bars are hard to come by right now with the COVID stuff and the delay in the process. So taking care of your equipment's big. Bars are expensive and are getting more and more expensive, it seems like, too. So take care of all of those deals. So chainsaw safety features. You look at a chainsaw, and again, these are questions I would ask in a teaching perspective when we're in person. Hey, name some safety features here. Might even have someone get up and show how to start a chainsaw. But the chain brake, the front handle, the guide bar cover, you know, make sure you're putting covers on those chains. A chain catcher keeps you safe. Anti-vibe mounts, again, 20, 30 years ago, they didn't even have anti-vibe mounts. Those chainsaws, when you started them, they would shake. 20, 30 years ago, you didn't even have a chain brake on some chainsaws. Actually, it's probably more than 30 years ago. You got the rear handle, the rear hand guard, throttle trigger lockout, you know, 2 points of contact when you're holding that chainsaw, just to make sure both triggers are in, and the front handle and the roll bar for the brake. And we're going to talk about that here shortly. How fast is a chainsaw traveling at full throttle? Any guesses in the comments section there? And did you know when a chainsaw makes contact, each tooth will make contact 10 times with the obstruction before it comes to a stop? Each tooth. There's typically 50 plus teeth on a small chainsaw. So nothing like getting hit 500 times. It's going to open you up quick. A chainsaw is typically traveling at 60 miles per hour. So it's moving pretty quick. Very quick, actually. Not something you want to get in front of a car that's doing 60 miles an hour, but a chainsaw chain can be going up to 60 miles per hour. How do you start a chainsaw? Here's one I would usually demonstrate in person for people, but if you guys want to answer the question on A, B, or C here, how do you start a chainsaw? Thanks for participating in the poll. I'll give you 15 seconds here to make sure everyone gets in. I think we're close to 50 some on the last deal here. There's always 2 in every crowd. That would point B out here. But basically, as the majority has said here, 91% are correct. You know, C is the proper way to start a chainsaw. You want control over the chainsaw. The problem with starting a chainsaw, and as you see in picture C here, most people's boots don't fit into that small grip in the back. I mean, it's in an ideal world, yeah, that's the most controlled way to start a chainsaw. Got to make sure your chain brake is on before you start that saw. You don't want that thing to open up where your foot's on the trigger and that thing takes off and catches something and kicks back into you. You know, drop starting a chainsaw like picture A, that's how a lot of people were probably taught. That's how people grew up doing it. It's been going on for years. It's a hard habit to break. What's wrong with drop starting a chainsaw? If you take a look at that guy there, if he drop starts that chainsaw and forgets to put the brake on and catches on that brush, that chain could be idling too fast. That chain could catch on the brush and kick back or pull him in. And not something you want to do. Obviously, the guy in letter B is just being a goofball, and we're not going to give him any credence or credibility, but it is a funny example of what not to do. It's best to start the chainsaw with it placed between your legs, okay? Oops, sorry about that. Firmly on the ground with the chain brake engaged, or with the butt end between your legs, okay? Like I said, the boots don't always work. The next best option is to firmly put the chainsaw with the butt end between your legs, chain brake on, and not drop starting it whatsoever. You know, drop starting it opens yourself up to lack of control, fatigue, tiredness, and in turn you could get kickback. Okay, use compression valve whenever possible. Typically they're found on top of the chainsaw. Release compression and does help the saw to start quicker. Walking with the chainsaw. How do you guys walk with the chainsaw? These are saw rules. You know, correct method of carrying a chainsaw, walk with it to your back. Why? When you're walking, make sure you're watching out for your teammates in this regard too. If you trip and you put your hands down and that chainsaw's out in front of you, it could catch your face. You could put your hands right on it, cut yourself open. You know, obviously the guy carrying it over his shoulder, he trips walking through the woods or in a ditch, that thing could get into his neck, cut his hand. Got to be smart about how you carry a chainsaw, guys. And the simplest, most effective way is to have that bar pointing away from you. And if you do let go of it, it falls, you fall forward, and you're not wearing the chainsaw. Okay. Saw rules, 2-step rule. All right. If that chainsaw is running and the chainsaw is operating and going, and you're going to take more than 2 steps, put the brake on. You know, please engage that brake. You know, carrying a saw, I just showed you pictures of what that would look like. Holding a saw, making sure your thumb is in the right place. I'll show you pictures of that coming up here. Using a chain brake, you guys all know. I hold this up here, the brake right here, you know, get in the habit of rolling your hand, okay? If you get in the habit of pushing and you overshoot it, you could run into a saw. Roll the brake, okay, but use your chain brake as often as you can. It's your lifeline, okay? As is your thumb, and we're going to show you pictures of this going forward, but since I have it up here, your thumb's got to hold on and be placed. It's common practice for people to put their thumb parallel with the bar. Don't do it. Livelihood is right here, keeping that thumb embraced in case any kickback occurs. In body position, I'll show you pictures of that as well. What's wrong with this picture? What's wrong with our buddy here in the backyard, our weekend warrior? If you guys want to point out any comments, you certainly can. Obviously, cutting in shorts is not something, you know the risk, know the precaution, take the precaution. Okay. In this particular picture, we're not wearing pants, let alone Kevlar pants or chaps, as we call them. We're not wearing gloves. His thumb's in the wrong position. From an athletic standpoint and an athletic stance, he's not in great position at all, as he's got his arms extended away from his body. He hasn't cleared the area around him properly. He could trip. I don't know what's laying behind his right foot there. I don't know if he's wearing glasses. Okay. Doesn't look like he's wearing a chainsaw very often. And it's just a complete picture and example of what an emergency room would say. Hey, this guy should not be doing this, or we're going to be working on it. Don't let that be you guys. Okay. When I talk body position, you think of an athletic stance. You notice one thing about all these people, okay? And it's no different when you're holding a chainsaw. Where are their arms? Their elbows are in. They've got their feet underneath them, okay? One of the most common practices for people when they're holding a chainsaw is they extend it away from their body. Well, if something happens, you have no power or control of that chainsaw. Keep your elbows in, stand firm, hold the chainsaw, have your hands in position where you can use the brake. It's one of the most challenging things, not only to teach people who are afraid or intimidated by a power tool, but it's a bad habit. Some people who are good at running a chainsaw even come in and have this habit. So my encouragement to you guys, keep an athletic stance and an athletic position. Keep your elbows in. Don't be extended. Okay? Here's a couple examples of people who are not doing things the right way. Again, guy on the right, cutting in shorts, okay? Common practice we see all the time. What's wrong with the guy's body position on the bottom picture? He's not behind the chainsaw. He's got his hands kind of crooked and all lopsided there. You got to stay behind the saw. That saw should not leave an area there between his knees, okay? Keep the saw close. Don't be afraid of the saw. The saw should walk through the stump for you. The guy on top's actually doing a pretty darn good job staying behind the saw, okay? Walk that saw around. A lot of times when people are cutting stumps off, they'll let the saw do the work and they'll forget to move their body. Keep moving your body as you work your way around that stump. Always keep two hands on the saw. You guys have seen one-handed chainsaws, I'm sure, such as this one. That's top handled. Oh yeah, I'm going to cut, and throw. Well, you're opening yourself up to injury here. Okay, it's an ANSI standard now too. Always need to keep two hands on the saw. If you need to control where it falls, you better cut it small. And when I say small, I'm talking 2-inch diameter stuff that's not going to hurt anything. Buzz it up and get it to the point where you can control it. Use ropes to tie it off, then make your cut. But don't one-hand a chainsaw. Okay, keep that brake in play by using two hands. Stay behind the saw. And unfortunately, for anyone who's left-handed, saws are right-handed. You're going to have to work with them right-handed. Switching sides, the bar is on the right-hand side of the chainsaw, okay? That's why it's made for right-handed people. If you do get kickback or kickback arc, it's going to miss you, okay? If you're holding it as a lefty and you get kickback arc, it's going to hit you. So let's make sure we're using saws as right-handed people. I know it's not fair, but that's the way they've been created. Hazards of kickback. Top quarter of the bar. Clear obstacles or obstructions. And again, body position is key here. Okay. These are true real life. This is a real life x-ray of a guy who ended up wearing a chainsaw inside his frontal cavity there. It got into his neck area. That's the x-ray. The chain came off and that's how he was brought to the hospital. This happened, I believe, 3 or 4 years ago. That top quarter of the bar, as you guys can see, as you guys can see, that's where kickback occurs. If you look at the picture to the right, this guy's cutting on a log. He hasn't cleared out the area. That top quarter of the bar catches on another log. That saw's coming back at him fast. Okay, kickback is dangerous. Kickback can, and I'll show you some pictures at the end, but kickback can result in issues going forward. How do you prevent kickback? Always operate the saw with two hands. Keep your thumbs wrapped around the handles, okay? Don't make them parallel to the handles. Wrap them around the handles. They're your lifeline. Whenever possible, stand to the left of the saw when making vertical cuts. Avoid cutting above your shoulders. And again, when I say above your shoulders, I'm talking extended arms, period. Don't keep your elbows in. Keep control of the chainsaw. Never initiate the cut with the upper tip of the bar. That top quarter is going to result in kickback. Use the right size saw for the task at hand. We had a guy a couple years ago. He had a 66 out, which is a big chainsaw. He was cutting buckthorn with it because he could get more ground clearing with it than he could with just a regular 26 or 36. What ended up happening was kickback. He caught more buckthorn than he anticipated. The saw kicked back on him, and it snipped him right in the neck, and he ended up with 5 stitches. It wasn't a big deal, fortunately for him, but it could have been a big deal. And again, it's a reminder to us, use the right size saw for the task at hand. Pictures here, guys. Pictures hopefully validate what we're trying to do, but here's kickback again. There's a kickback arc that you see in the top left-hand picture. Oftentimes, kickback's going to happen when you're ground cutting, okay? There's something you can't see on the other side, and or you catch something, and you want to watch out for kickback. How do you cut logs on the ground? If there's all pressure, again, knowing pressure, knowing and understanding, having a plan. Know the risk, know the precaution, take the precaution. If that log's laying flat on the ground, we're going to cut from the top. It's called an overbuck. If you got pressure on the log that you see on the ground here, tree supported at one end, take pressure off that log. Cut small. Take that chunk off the end. Reduce the risk. Okay. You don't want that thing to roll up on you. Take the weight off the tip. Know where you're cutting and what you're dealing with. Take some weight off, roll it over, get it to a point where you can handle it. And then sometimes you're going to need to undercut to get the pressure off. Okay. Without getting in the dirt, that's tricky sometimes, but roll the log over. Don't take shortcuts. Don't get lazy. There's nothing worse than a dull chainsaw. Okay. A sharp chainsaw is much safer than a dull chainsaw where you're physically getting tired cutting and grinding through things. Common types of cutting from the ground with a chainsaw, guys. Spring pulls, take the pressure off. You're going to take many shallow cuts to the top side and underside of this spring pull. You don't want that thing kicking back on you. Relieve the pressure before you do anything, okay? Another option would be cutting that log off the top and trying to roll it off without getting in harm's way, okay? When you just stand back there and start cutting on a spring pull, you're opening yourself up to kickback, barber chair, or the whipping action of that thing just flying back at you. Using a wedge, making I don't want to get too into specifics here in regards to what these notches look like, but typically a fifth of the tree, a fifth to a third, okay? Open face is nice. You have more control with an open face notch. A conventional notch works, which you can see in the bottom left-hand picture there. Humboldt notch is more for loggers. You're going to get more of a jump on the log. Again, an open face log is nice. You can control it and let it go down to the ground. The conventional notch is good, but you're still going to get a little bit of jump when that log flies. Okay. Exit strategies, you're going to want 2 45-degree angles. So you're going to want to clear out around any tree you're cutting. Don't leave trip hazards, fall hazards, brush. Clear that stuff out. A lot of people take shortcuts, and if that tree spins, you're going to have issues getting out of harm's way. Here are some pictures, you guys, of where injuries occur. These have not changed over the course of 10 years or 20 years, as long as they've been keeping data. Obviously, you can see your left hand, your left leg, and unfortunately, your shoulders and face are at risk, okay? And why do we think and know that is? It's because of how chainsaws were designed. It's how they were made. They're made for right-handed people. Poor body positioning is what's causing legs to be cut. That left hand or that left arm, that's a big one. And it's the biggest one. And why? It's because of one-handing a chainsaw. Pulling with a chainsaw and grabbing a branch and throwing have resulted in many, many cuts to the left hand. And then everything you see up top is likely kickback oriented, where they failed to clear around the subject at hand, where they're trying to cut something up, and here's the result. So here's some pictures, and I don't want to scare you guys, but this is the point of chainsaw safety, again, is to keep you guys aware of what's going on around you. So if this is something you guys are squeamish about, don't want to look at, I completely understand. But the guy to the left, that was one of our workers here, experienced chainsaw guy, told his friend to go put chaps on. Oh, it's just one cut. I'll grab a chainsaw and cut this stump off. Here's what happened to him. Fortunately for us, that was one of our last issues, and it was several years ago, but not something you want to be a part of. Did not wear chaps. That's what happened. These other people, I have no idea who they are, but top picture there is Kickback. Obviously, the chainsaw got a hold of the left arm on the bottom guy, and that was likely a one-handing a chainsaw issue. The right-handed chainsaw issue, likely a guy probably using a chainsaw backwards. He could have been using his left hand and cutting and opened himself up to safety issues. So that said, I believe we have 5 minutes left here, Claire, and we're to the end. I appreciate everyone tuning in. Stay safe. Okay, you're coaching it or allowing it. Attitude and communication are keys to this process. But again, what I remind everyone here to do is know the risk, know the precaution, and take the precaution. Any questions you guys have, I'm going to stick around here for 5-10 minutes if you guys want to. Best way to do this, Claire, again, are they going to respond via response?
They can put questions in the chat box, or they can also unmute.
Unmute and ask at this point. Yeah, so I'll make myself available here for a few minutes, but feel free to ask questions.
I've also put a survey in the chat box. If people can take it, just let us know what you thought of today.
What's the distance everybody else besides the operator of the chainsaw is supposed to stay away from the tree being felled?
Great question. So safest, best bet, what I would tell everyone is twice the distance of the tree. Okay. If you have a 100-foot tree, they need to be 200 feet back. If you have a 25-foot tree, they need to be 50 feet or more back. And it never hurts to be too far away. But remember, if you're part of the process, if someone's in a rope or a pulling process, they can be within, they're supposed to be 1.5 times the distance of the tree back. So again, a 50-foot tree, you'd want to be 75 feet back. I would say the same thing for people on the ground though, too. If you are using a bucket truck, which I don't expect many people are, keep people back, twice the distance of the drop zone even. If you got a 50-foot drop zone, keep them back 100 feet. You can't be too safe on it. But a good rule of thumb, simple answer, twice the distance. Thanks for asking.
We have a question from Brian in the chat asking, how should we start a saw while standing in a creek or water?
Ooh, good question. So is it above your waist? Are we talking you're wearing waders when this is going on? I would probably say if you are in water above, I would probably start it before I ventured in and keep the chain brake on. I know that not all saws continually run, but if you're cutting in water and it's over your waist, that's probably not going to be an option. The best bet though, hopefully you're working in water that's below your knees, and you can place the saw between your legs firmly, pinch it with your knees, and keep that chain brake on and start the saw.
We have another question on once the tree is down, what's the advised distance everybody else on the tree crew supposed to stay away from the operator as he cuts the limbs and the logs?
Great question. So ANSI standard would be 10 feet. And that's something I should have included in this particular presentation. It's one of the things we usually just touch on, but two people shouldn't be working closer than 10 feet apart. So the person with the saw or a pole saw or any type of saw, anyone on the crew should be at least 10 feet away. I know you see people all the time trying to push or help push in the process. And I would say pull, don't push. Again, that's another concept here. Put a rope in the top of the tree and pull with it rather than put a skid steer on it and push with it. That's another common practice we see with people where they end up in trouble because they get a barber chair where the tree splits and comes back at them. Pulling is always better than pushing, and you should always stay 10 feet away from the person cutting on the ground.
We have another question from Marty asking, what's the felling wedge to use?
What's the felling wedge to use? Okay, so let's see here. You see the wedge in this picture here? I've got one here as well. These are handy, you guys. If you're ever cutting stumps off, a great way to keep your saw from pinching. You know, carry one of these around. A stick works too, but this is much more professional and much cleaner. Hammer that wedge in there. It takes the pressure off and it helps you relieve pressure when cutting a stump off. But in a felling procedure, like you see here in the middle picture, you know, all it does, you can get this cut to a certain point where you leave a holding. The holding would be the piece of the hinge right there in the middle that you're seeing. You know, if you get that to 1 or 2 inches and the tree hasn't gone anywhere, if you continually pound your wedge in, you don't have to cut through your notch. You know, one of the scariest parts about cutting through a notch is having that tree spin and come back at you. A wedge pretty much alleviates that. A wedge, you're behind the tree, you pound it in, it guides the tree and carries it over towards the notch while allowing you a safer exit strategy in case the tree does spin. Hopefully that answers your question. Great little cheap tool though, if you guys ever, be nice for everyone who's felling to have one on site.
There was just a follow-up question about what the best brand is to buy.
That's a loaded question. So chainsaws are good. I mean, we're a steel dealer. We run steel chainsaws. Husqvarna's are great. You know, other than that, I know those are the two biggest in our industry in terms of people using them over and over again. From a homeowner perspective, you know, the battery ones they're making now are nice. I'll be honest. If you're not going to use a chainsaw every day, I would say a battery chainsaw is not a bad option. More expensive. Are they always charged when you need them? Those are some of the downfalls. Scary part about battery-powered chainsaws, you can't hear them. They're quiet. There's good in that too. It's great for your ears. But if people are working around you or walking around you and they don't know you're running one, it can be a little bit scary. Everything, you know, again, I've only really got experience with one brand of chainsaws, but having gone to trade shows, things of that nature, a lot of what's out there is good. Echoes aren't bad. Oregon chainsaws aren't bad. But the two most popular in our field would be Husqvarna and Steel.
I think he was looking for the best brand of felling wedge.
Oh, felling wedge? Oh. Again, I just have steel wedges. They're cheap. I don't think there is a best brand per se. Just buy a sturdy, they're hard plastic. I don't know that there's a brand. Sorry about that, Claire. Good questions, guys. Any other questions? Great time to ask. I mean, the part I hate about Zoom calls, and I think you guys have all been part of plenty of them up to this point, but the interaction's key. I mean, some of the times the best questions come from you guys in real life experiences asking, hey, what should we have done in this situation? Or, hey, this happened. How do we prevent this going forward? If you guys have any scenarios like that you want to share, feel free. But I guess, Claire, we're probably good to go then. I appreciate everyone tuning in, and thanks for your time. If you guys ever have questions, feel free to give me a call here at the Otter Tail office. Again, I'm Jake Carr at Carr's Tree Service, and we're throughout the state of Minnesota. And if you guys have any questions or need help on anything ever, don't hesitate to call and ask. So,
Great. Well, thank you so much, Jake, and thank you everyone for attending.
thanks for tuning in.